Sasaki is a lonely, overworked salaryman who hates his stressful life. However, everything changes when he develops a crush on a shy supermarket clerk, but doesn't know she's secretly a freaky baddie who wants him. But before this, Sasaki was an overworked and underpaid salaryman who would always get yelled at by his toxic boss for no reason. His only joy in life was to see his crush, a cute girl named Yamada, who worked at a local supermarket. Every time Sasaki got butterflies from seeing her, he mentally cursed himself for being a creep, but that didn't stop him. One night, Sasaki's overtime extends beyond the usual hours, so when he gets to the supermarket to recharge his battery, he finds an old hag instead of Yamada at the cash counter. Sasaki assumes her shift ended, so he decides to smoke his depression away. However, he is unable to find a smoking area outside the supermarket. Just then, a baddie in her emo era calls him out and offers to let him smoke at the back of the mart, reassuring him that no one knows about this secret smoking spot except her. As Sasaki awkwardly takes the spot next to her and lights his cigarette, wondering why he has never seen her working at the supermarket, the girl suddenly turns to him, which makes him flustered. She quickly explains that she just needed him to light her cigarette, while mentally laughing at how much of a virgin he is. Once Sasaki regains his composure, she drops another atomic bomb and asks if he has a crush on Yamada, since he's always lining up at her cash register. Sasaki indirectly admits to having a crush on Yamada, so the girl says she understands, as Yamada is pretty and has huge assets. However, Sasaki instantly gets worked up, explaining that he's not some creep who only stares at her melons, but actually likes her as a person since she's the antidote to his depression. The girl is convinced and says she's glad he's not one of the other scumbags who keep hitting on Yamada and making her uncomfortable. The following day, as Sasaki heads to the cash register for his daily dose of Yamada, she thanks him for being her biggest fan, saying she heard it all from her friend, Tayama, the baddie who smoked with him last night. Sasaki starts blushing like an idiot and quietly walks away, mentally cursing Tayama for exposing him. Meanwhile, Yamada laughs at how innocent Sasaki is, as he is the only person on Earth who still hasn't registered that Tayama is actually Yamada outside of her work clothes. The following day, Sasaki manages to visit the supermarket again, despite the heavy burden of outing himself in front of Yamada, but to his surprise, she treats him like she usually does. On his way back, he curses himself for being a weirdo again and wishes that Yamada would continue to bill him up instead of reporting him to the police. The following day, while he's overworking at his office again, his co-worker and bestie, Suzuki, tells him to quit taking extra work upon himself just because he wants to facilitate the newbies. Sasaki says it's no big deal, while recalling how he will just get all his energy back when he sees Yamada after work, only for Tayama's cheeky face to appear and wreck his daydream. Later, when he visits the supermarket, he finds that the old lady has replaced his waifu again. However, as he leaves the place dejected, Tayama calls out to him from the back of the mart again, wondering if he'd join her for a smoke. Sasaki immediately calls her out for betraying him, wondering why she told Yamada he has a crush on her. Tayama laughs without an ounce of remorse and reminds him that Yamada was actually happy upon learning this, but Sasaki says she was probably just being nice. Just then, he's reminded of the sweet snack he just bought, so he hands it to Tayama, calling it a little treat for letting him use the smoking area. The baddie is amused and mentions she has seen old geezers enjoying these, making Sasaki wonder if he has finally entered the grandpa territory. He then settles next to Tayama and tries to smoke a cigarette, only to realize he forgot his pack at work. Seeing this, Tayama offers him her own cigarette, the one with her lipstick stain, which completely freaks him out. He eventually takes the cigarette from her and puts it out, telling her to quit messing with his old and tired soul. Tayama laughs and explains that she only messes with him because he is her antidote against her brutal workplace, just like Yamada is for him. While Sasaki is stunned to hear this, Tayama tells him to continue dropping by to have a smoke with her here. The following day at work, Suzuki finds a bunch of sweet snacks bought by Sasaki and asks why he keeps buying the same thing again and again. The poor guy tries to explain he only does it because he needs a reason to shop at the supermarket near his house, but Suzuki doesn't get it and tells him to save up for his retirement fund instead. That day, Sasaki overthinks whether he should buy the same thing again, but ends up getting it anyway. At the cash counter, Yamada mentions that she recently got hooked on these snacks too, making Sasaki realize that it must be Tayama who introduced her to these. It does sound suspicious to him as they don't work the same shift, but instead of finally connecting the dots and deducing they are the same person, the genius just assumes they are best friends. A few days later, an exhausted Sasaki heads to the supermarket, where Yamada notices that he's feeling down. She tries to cheer him up by flashing her cutest smile at him and offering self-made discounts, but nothing seems to help. As soon as he leaves, Yamada switches on her baddie mode and finds it suspicious that Sasaki just nodded his head at her instead of wagging his tail like usual. Meanwhile, Sasaki tries to find Tayama behind the supermarket so he can have a smoke, only to find the area empty. However, as soon as he frowns, Tayama suddenly appears from behind and freaks him out, before forcing him to smoke a cigarette with her. Sasaki settles down and lets out an extended sigh, which finally allows her to ask about the cause of his depression. Sasaki says it's just work-related, so Tayama mentions that it was actually Yamada who was worried about him and not her. He doesn't buy this excuse and mentions that since her hair is undone, unlike usual, he will assume she rushed out to help him because she was worried too. This strikes a nerve, so Tayama blows a puff of smoke into his face before bringing her face close to his and calling him a cheeky guy. Sasaki is startled and starts blushing, so Tayama calls him a dense loser as well, on top of being cheeky, and wonders how long he will take to catch a hint. On the other hand, Sasaki finally opens up and asks Tayama if he looks like the monster from Frankenstein, given that a fresh hire started crying because of him today. Tayama is more amused than worried as she pictures him with anger issues at work, but he explains that all he did was try to cheer up the new hire, but instead she started crying. His ugly boss, in turn, yelled at him to ruin his day, but Sasaki is more worried about the new girl quitting thanks to his efforts gone wrong. Tayama states that given how toxic his workplace is, the girl is going to quit either way, so he shouldn't get upset over it. Besides, she will eventually learn that he's a great person behind his Nosferatu-inspired facial features. This finally cheers up Sasaki, so he messes up the mood by bringing up Yamada, stating that a person as pretty and cheerful as her would never scare off a new hire, unlike him. Tayama feels attacked because the real Yamada is actually the chairman of the emo club, so she explains that supermarket employees aren't cheerful by nature, but are trained to act like they are. Sasaki cannot believe that she can smile as cheerfully as his beloved Yamada, so Tayama tries to flex her shape-shifting skills, only for Sasaki to burst out laughing. Disappointed that this loser still didn't catch that they are the same person, Tayama instead pulls the Joker move on Sasaki and teaches him how to smile, all while he continues to apologize for making fun of her. The following day at work, the subordinate who cried the day before approaches Sasaki and explains that she only cried because she got overwhelmed and not because of something that he did. She thanks him for being such a good person to her, which reminds him of what Tayama told him, so he smiles and tells his subordinate to lean on him more. As soon as she leaves, Suzuki teases him for having too much riz, only for Sasaki to tell him to shut up. That evening, Sasaki returns to his usual high spirits when he visits the supermarket, especially when Yamada smiles at him, which makes her Tayama alter ego weirdly frustrated. A few days later, Sasaki overestimates what his geezer body can tolerate and leaves his house without a jacket on. As he sneezes on his way back home, he spots Tayama sulking at their usual spot and drops by to say hello, only to regret his decision 1 second later. She eventually sighs and asks him to take a seat next to her, but as soon as he does, he's met with the aftermath of her temper tantrum in the form of 100 cigarette butts. As she starts mumbling out of anger, he quietly gets up and tries to buy a hot drink from the vending machine for her, stating that warm drinks help with anger a lot more than cigarettes do. Upon hearing this, Tayama finally spills the tea and reveals that she's angry because a customer whined about the smell of cigarettes on her, which makes it the first time their store has received a complaint involving her. Sasaki listens, then admits that it feels like betrayal when people accept one side of you but reject the other, even though both belong to the same person, which deeply touches Tayama, given her bipolar personality. Just then, Sasaki starts sneezing, so Tayama gets up and wraps her jacket around him, making him blush like an idiot. When he thanks her for it, she grabs the sleeve of her jacket and thanks him instead, but he doesn't notice. The next morning, Sasaki gets yelled at by a client again, so he visits the back of the supermarket to trauma dump on Tayama, only to find her in the middle of her Yamada transformation. She quickly puts on her customer service face and greets him, explaining that she's here because of the vending machine. Sasaki easily believes her and starts blabbering about how he only came here because he wanted to smoke with Tayama. Yamada says she already knows about this, hoping that he would finally catch a hint, but Mr. Genius assumes she and Tayama are besties again, making Yamada sigh in disappointment. However, her heart starts fluttering again when Sasaki asks Yamada if Tayama is doing okay since the customer complaint, so she reassures him that she is. She also asks him to let her lean on him again, to which Sasaki says he can't poke his nose into her business all the time. But Yamada reassures him that if Tayama comes to him first, then it won't be a problem. This reminds Sasaki of how nice Yamada has been to him, so he thanks her for worrying about his previous episode of depression, which makes her blush. Just then, she reverts to her customer service persona and asks Sasaki to smoke if he wants to, even though Tayama isn't here, but he says he will refrain from smoking today and starts walking off. She quickly runs after him and reaches for his face, only to remove a flower petal from his hair, stating that she didn't remove it before because he looked cute with it. The self-proclaimed geezer gets flustered and blushes like an idiot before thanking Yamada for her help. Later, as he walks back to his office, he wonders if Yamada has a freaky side to her too. Meanwhile, Yamada returns to her original form and smokes a cigarette behind the supermarket, wondering when her idiot crush will realize she has a thing for him too. A few days later, an awkward Sasaki buys a deodorant, and Yamada racks her brain over what might be the reason. He tries to explain his sob story to her too, but stops midway, making her even more suspicious. That night, while she's having a smoke with him as Tayama, she asks if someone has told him he smells of cigarettes, which hits the bullseye. Sasaki asks if she's secretly a mind reader, but Tayama just laughs, saying she saw him shopping for a deodorant. That's when Sasaki starts lore dumping, explaining that it's his boss who hates smoking and keeps telling him to do something about the smell on him. Tayama advises him to start brushing his teeth after a smoke and follow that with a deodorant to get rid of the smell. Poor old guy starts sparkling as he hears this since he cannot believe someone could have common sense, so he glazes her for being such a know-it-all. Just then, she hands him her own deodorizing mist, explaining that it's half empty and she has more at home, before telling him to use this instead of the cheap bottle he bought before. Sasaki wonders what the deodorant smells like, so Tayama takes off her jacket and offers to let him smell it off her, which makes his brain crash. He asks if she sees him as a dog or something, and Tayama doesn't deny it, saying that he reminds her of a Labrador retriever. From that day onward, Sasaki follows her advice after smoking, only for Suzuki to call him an idiot. He believes that their boss is just an angry little man who calls them stinky as a greeting, but Sasaki successfully manipulates him, saying that if he smells good, his wife will love him more. The simp instantly folds, saying that he cannot wait to become even more handsome in her eyes, and follows Sasaki's grand anti-stink plan. The following day, Yamada mentions that he smells like Tayama, but although she expects him to start panicking, Sasaki calmly explains that he's using the same deodorant as her, all while blushing deep red. This reaction catches her off guard, so after he leaves the mart, she can't help but blush too. A few days later, Sasaki heads to the mall to buy a return gift for Tayama, and on his way to the supermarket, wishes that she would like it. However, when he reaches their usual spot, he finds Tayama's brooding manager, Goto, smoking there instead of her. Sasaki instantly begins sweating at the sight of her, since her emo meter is even higher than Tayama's. Goto, on the other hand, pulls out her phone to report him for trespassing, only for Sasaki to stop her and explain that he's a friend of Tayama and has been smoking here with her. Goto is confused as nobody named Tayama works at their supermarket, but when he explains that it's the goth girl with the flashy jacket, who is good friends with Yamada, she finally connects the dots. Goto realizes that Yamada has been playing with this poor guy's heart, so she calms down and asks why he's here. Sasaki explains he came to hand over a gift to Tayama, making Goto question if she's making him get her gifts and simp for her. This frustrates Sasaki as he insists he got this gift with his free will, so Goto backs off and offers to hand the gift over to Tayama. As soon as Sasaki leaves, Yamada appears, and the two share a smoke together, all while Goto gives her death glares. Eventually, she scolds her for letting a customer smoke here, but Yamada tries to use her baby voice to convince her of her innocence. Goto doesn't buy it, revealing that Sasaki just came by to see her, and shows her the gift he brought for her. She then starts yapping about how stupid her made-up name is, and how much of an idiot Sasaki is for believing her, only to be surprised when she sees Yamada hugging the gift bag and smiling. This triggers her built-in love meter, which she has polished after reading a ton of rom-coms, so she decides to observe Yamada's budding romance from afar for a while. The following day, Sasaki imagines the tough time Goto would have given to Tayama, and gets progressively more and more depressed. At the same time, Goto is busy fangirling over romance comics like she isn't a tired, middle-aged woman. Just then, Yamada knocks on her car window and asks if she has quit smoking for her electric cigar for real. Goto says she got tired of all the cleanup that smoking required, so she's fine with the electric ones, before asking Yamada about what she's really here for. She quickly asks if she can continue smoking with Sasaki at their usual spot, wondering if Goto would guarantee his safety and not shoot him on sight. Since Goto wants her daily dose of real-life romance and action, she says they can continue it as long as it stays low-key. Just as Yamada begins celebrating, Goto tells her to share all the tea with her, but this geezer-brained woman doesn't understand what that means. That night, while Sasaki is contemplating whether he should head to their smoking spot or not, Tayama appears from behind and startles him. She asks what he is sneaking around for, so he explains the entire ordeal about the other employee he met here, only to learn the employee was actually the manager. While this sucks the soul out of his body, Tayama drags him to their spot and settles down in her usual seat, all while he keeps an eye out for Goto. She reassures him that they have got the green light from Goto, before pulling out his gift and thanking him for it. It's a cat-coated miniature ashtray that Tayama says she feels really happy about, as she can picture him going from store to store, trying to find it. Sasaki doesn't understand, so she explains that a gift this specific and uncommon would have been a pain to find, so when she realizes that he has put a lot of effort into it, she can't help but feel happy. This makes Sasaki question if she can read minds for real, but Tayama only giggles, making Sasaki wonder if receiving a gift from an old geezer like him is really that nice. Just then, Tayama offers him her handy ashtray, but as soon as Sasaki considers using it, she sticks close to him and makes him flustered. She insists that he use the tray while she holds it, but Sasaki suggests that she just hand it over to him. Tayama agrees but takes the tray away, teasing Sasaki to try and grab it. However, as the poor guy tries to grab it, his arm muscles start cramping, and he yells out in pain. The very next day, as Sasaki buys some cold compresses for his sore muscles at the mart, Yamada can't help but chuckle at the sight, all while Sasaki watches her with confusion, and Goto stores the scene in her memory for a fangirling session later. A few days later, Suzuki pokes fun at Sasaki for using reading glasses and a newspaper in the 21st century, and suggests that he buy a smartphone. The old-fashioned geezer says he sees no need for it since his flip phone is still perfectly functional, only for the phone to suddenly stop working. Later that evening, after Sasaki buys a new phone, he tries to navigate how to use it, only to realize he might be older than a dinosaur fossil. He quickly runs to the wisest person in his life, Tayama, and asks her to teach him how to use a phone. She agrees after saying she isn't surprised he still used a flip phone in this day and age, since it matches his gray and old personality. As her masterclass on how to use a phone begins, Sasaki tries to type a message and go back to his home screen, but fails at doing both. While she stares at him in disbelief, Sasaki states that all he wants is to be able to read a newspaper on his phone. So Tayama recites an entire list of all the things he needs to do, from creating an email to downloading the application from the App Store. However, Sasaki's brain goes into overload mode, and he fails to keep up with any of this. As soon as Tayama realizes he might be hopeless, she takes the phone from him and installs the app herself, which greatly satisfies the grandpa. He then asks if she can teach him how to increase the font size, which makes Tayama sigh and touch his glasses, then ask him never to wear his glasses again once she changes the font for him. Sasaki gets rizzed up by this move and agrees to her condition. However, his embarrassment gets even worse when Tayama offers to save Yamada's number in his phone. He instantly begs her not to, saying that he doesn't want to end up on her block list, but Tayama lies, saying that she's already saved it. This practically unalives him, but he comes back to life when she admits she lied, just as she hands him his phone back. The following day at work, as Yamada does her hair and makeup to transform into her customer-friendly version, she checks her phone to see the day's schedule, only to stumble upon the picture of Sasaki she took yesterday. The photo alone makes her smile and pumps her up for the rest of the day. A few days later, Suzuki yells at Sasaki for not knowing what BuzzFeed quizzes are, while he plays a quiz about what his favorite cigarette brand says about him. Sasaki, on the other hand, wonders whether Tayama would like this Gen Z stuff. That night, Sasaki introduces her to this quiz, and even though she is too cool to engage in such useless things, Tayama goes along with it after he flashes his puppy smile at her. She asks about his results first, only for a traumatized Sasaki to reveal that it says he's a masochist who looks down on other people. As Tayama bursts out laughing, he asks about her results, only for her to reveal that it says she's a two-faced person who likes freaky things. While she follows this with how stupid it sounds, Sasaki's shock skyrockets, and he regrets ever bringing this up to her. To make up for his crimes, he kneels before Tayama and apologizes for making her say something so awkward out loud. She tells him that even though she hates talking about personal stuff, she'll forgive him because his intentions were innocent, as he only wanted to relate to her over trending stuff. Just then, Sasaki says the results were at least right about her being two-faced, as he has been noticing her hot and cold behavior recently. Tahiyama is stunned, wondering if this loser has finally realized she has been Yamada all along, only for Sasaki to disappoint her again, stating that she's two-faced because she acts cold, but is surprisingly warm. Pissed off, she quickly grabs him by the tie and pulls him close, only to shove a cigarette into his mouth and tell him to smoke now. Once he settles down, she lights it up for him, and Sasaki apologizes once again. The next day, while Sasaki is still knee-deep in regret, he decides not to head to Yamada's cash register because he doesn't deserve it after making Tahiyama uncomfortable. However, Yamada sees him and offers to ring him up, which makes him blush and follow her orders like a faithful puppy. As Goto watches them from afar, she wonders if something has happened between these two. Later that day, Sasaki meets with a client in the scorching heat, who thanks him for the proposal he sent him. Just then, it is announced on the television that the summer is approaching Japan earlier than expected, but Sasaki isn't thrilled as he would still need to wear suits and ties. After the meeting, a tired Sasaki heads to the supermarket to grab a pint of ice cream. However, as soon as he sees Yamada and notices she's wearing half sleeves, his brain stops working, and he quickly takes his leave. The next day, Tahiyama teases him about this and asks why he left the mart without shopping. He tries to play it cool, saying that he was there to get ice cream, but since the air conditioner cooled him down, he left. Tahiyama doesn't buy this and asks if it was actually because of Yamada's arms, which makes Sasaki burn himself with his cigarette. As Tahiyama hits the bullseye, she asks if he's a Victorian man in disguise since a woman's arms sent him into a spiral. But Sasaki plays it cool, saying that it's no big deal as retail workers keep switching uniforms over the year. This makes her wonder if he found Yamada's arms pretty, but instead of answering, he just blushes and sweats like a madman. To change the topic, Sasaki asks Tahiyama if she's alright under her jacket, given that the weather is really hot, but she pulls it off her shoulders to reveal her crop top.
Wow! Beautiful!
Explaining that she is dressed lightly underneath, like a certified virgin who has never seen a woman's skin. Sasaki starts sweating like crazy once again. However, just as Tahiyama assumes he sees her like he sees Yamada, Sasaki asks if her belly feels cold in a shirt that's short. This completely throws her off, so she goes back to smoking her cigarettes, as she doesn't want to commit murder tonight. Just then, Sasaki offers her his jacket, asking her to wear it if she's cold, so Tahiyama immediately grabs it and replaces her own jacket with it. Sasaki panics as he assumes she must be uncomfortable wearing his jacket like that, and explains that he only meant for her to cover her belly with it, but Tahiyama tells him to shut up as she savors his scent. Later that night, while she's drinking her late-night beer after a bowl of instant noodles, she realizes that Sasaki likes arms more than bellies, which makes her conscious about her current body weight. A few days later, as the weather becomes hotter and more humid, Suzuki becomes increasingly psychotic too, as the heat starts getting to his head. To make it worse, the air conditioning at their office goes out of order, which affects his mental health even more gravely. Sasaki, on the other hand, uses his cigarettes to play a superstitious game and reassures Suzuki that the air conditioning will be fixed by tomorrow. That night, when he visits the back of the mart, Goto accidentally splashes him with a water hose. She later helps him change into a spare pair of trousers, so while he awkwardly sits next to her in silence, he tries to break the ice by thanking her. Goto is unimpressed and tells him not to act so formally with her since they are both old-timers. Sasaki is impressed since he didn't expect her to be a grandma, but after Goto specifies she is pushing 40s, he says he can't help but respect her for running such a busy supermarket at such a delicate age. Just then, Goto mentions he must have lost his mind when he learned about Tahiyama's age, but this dumb guy has no idea about it, which surprises her. She asks if he has even the slightest bit of interest in her personal life, so Sasaki admits that he does, but he's an old guy, so he doesn't want to creep her out by asking these questions. He adds that he is happy with whatever lore dump she leaves him with, all while Goto watches him and realizes he might secretly have a thing for Tahiyama too. To mess with him, she asks if he likes her, only to embarrass Sasaki, who starts blushing while he denies the simp allegations. She then asks if he hates her, but Sasaki denies that too, asking Goto not to make everything so black and white all the time. Just then, Tahiyama shows up and sends Sasaki's heart into arrest, while Goto strategically takes her leave to deal with a Karen at her counters. With her gone, Sasaki asks Tayama if she heard everything that he and Goto talked about, but she acts oblivious. Just as an anxious Sasaki starts yapping about what happened, Tayama suddenly walks up to him and starts drying his hair with a towel. In the process, she hides his eyes and kisses his forehead over the cloth before whispering that she's 24. Sasaki, on the other hand, is too stunned to connect the dots and deduce what she means by that random number. A few days later, Sasaki's bald boss finally stops traumatizing him and leaves for a vacation. However, all of the burden falls upon Sasaki. To make things worse, the rookies at his workplace either keep messing things up so he has to clean up after mistakes, or they keep disappearing without a word, leaving even more tasks upon his old and weary shoulders. Day in and day out, Sasaki keeps working himself to the bone, which gets worse when he keeps missing the last train home and even struggles to restock on his beloved cigarettes. One of these days, a chick at his workplace takes an early leave due to a family emergency and leaves Sasaki with all of her work, which his dog-like nature easily accepts. The situation gets worse over the course of that day, and eventually, Sasaki collapses for dramatic effects. The next morning, he wakes up in his increasingly disheveled house and continues to work like a donkey, all while everyone else around him continues to complain. 2 weeks later, his misery finally comes to an end, so as he walks back home in the rain, he wonders what he did to deserve all of this. Just then, he comes across Tayama, who asks if he can help her with something, so he finally smiles and agrees. She takes him to their usual spot and reveals she is making weather dolls for the rainy season. However, the only problem is that her artistic skills would put Vincent van Gogh to shame. This makes Sasaki chuckle too, but he quickly collects himself and offers to help her out. His first attempt at drawing turns out to be a success, as he recreates a low-budget version of Goto. As Tayama bursts out laughing, Sasaki smiles and gives it another shot, this time doodling a face similar to Tayama's. The gesture touches her, so she returns the favor by doodling him on the next doll, all while Sasaki mumbles about how much he likes rainy days as they make the smoke from his cigarettes thicker and the taste even better. As his therapy session begins, he mentions that because of being so busy these past 2 weeks, he hasn't been able to enjoy any of this. But midway through his trauma dumping, Sasaki falls asleep. Tayama gently removes the cigarette from his mouth and wishes him sweet dreams. The following morning, Sasaki wakes up in his room on his first official day off in weeks, only to find a sketch on his hand made by Tayama, which makes him smile. Meanwhile, the supermarket celebrates its rainy season with discounted instant noodles, and Yamada can't help but have her fair share. Just then, Goto walks in and tells her she can take the rest of the day off as they don't have a lot of work to do, so she gets off and decides to head home after shopping a bit. As she's doing so, she mentally apologizes to Sasaki for not being able to greet him at the cash counter today as Yamada. Just then, she smells his simp signals from afar and finds him shopping in one of the aisles. To mess with his head, she turns on her Yamada mode and cheerfully greets him, making the poor guy drop his basket. As he picks up his stuff, he mentally calms down his dark side, as seeing Yamada outside of her work clothes is threatening his innocence. Meanwhile, Yamada keeps up with her good girl act and hands him a magazine he dropped, all while Sasaki mentally recites the national anthem in Russian to appear like a sane person. Just then, Yamada tries to pick out a snack for herself, but gets confused between 3 of them, so Sasaki offers her his expert consultation, asking her to assign 1 snack to each of his 4 cigarettes. He then plays his usual game, and Yamada eventually picks out the one his game reveals, allowing Sasaki to explain his superstitious side to her. Once that is done, he politely takes his leave, without realizing that he hasn't placed the magazine back into his basket yet. Later that day, Tayama plays the game on her own, wondering whether Sasaki will realize his feelings, agree to date her, or remain oblivious. To her surprise, all 4 cigarettes pop out, making her smile like an idiot. Meanwhile, Sasaki runs back to the supermarket to return the magazine that he accidentally shoplifted, all while Goto stares him down like the Grim Reaper. The following day at work, Sasaki gets his yearly health checkup form and starts dreading his results. Suzuki, on the other hand, curses him for having a normal test last time while he got high levels of uric acid to deal with. However, he says he is a different person from who he was last year, as he now brings his own lunchbox, made by his beloved wife. Seeing his lucky life makes Sasaki feel extremely single, especially when Suzuki says he will quit both alcohol and smoking eventually, since he wants to live a long and happy life with his wife. That day at the supermarket, Yamada rings him up and offers him a discount card for their newly stocked non-alcoholic beer. Sasaki uses this chance to overshare again, as he explains how he was looking for an alternative to alcohol, given that his yearly checkup is on the way. That evening, as Tayama waits for him at the back of the market, Sasaki shows up, making her tease him about his health checkup and smoking habit, which he can't change. The dumb guy is shocked as usual about her knowing things he previously told Yamada, but Tayama is too tired to explain it to him, so she just nods her head when he says she must have heard it from Yamada. Just then, Sasaki settles down next to her and asks if they get their health checkups every year too. When Tayama says yes, he asks if she refrains from smoking a few weeks before that as well, and despite knowing full well she has no self-control whatsoever, she says she does because health is wealth and she can't afford being poor. Sasaki finds it impressive and reveals that despite being told to put on weight after every single checkup, he has failed to do it so far. He calls himself a loser, but Tayama pinches him and tells him to buy pre-made meals from their deli section instead of snacks all the time. She also asks what he will do if they tell him to quit smoking, and after some thinking, Sasaki says it will be really hard for him. Hearing this, Tayama smacks his back and tells him to cheer up, as 1 week of avoiding alcohol and smoking won't cancel out years of consuming either way. Over the next few days, Sasaki eats salads bought from the deli section and replaces his alcoholic beer with the non-alcoholic alternative. Eventually, the day of the examination arrives, and although it goes uneventfully, when Sasaki receives his results, his entire world collapses. Meanwhile, Suzuki celebrates his overall normal results, happy that he at least won't have to quit his unhealthy habits. However, while he is busy celebrating his win with his wife, Sasaki has lost his will to live. That night, when he visits Tayama, he reveals that his results were not satisfactory, so he has to get a chest scan and quit smoking. Over the next few days, Yamada stays upset about this because she assumes they won't be seeing each other very often if he has no reason to smoke anymore. Goto reassures her that she's overthinking, because all she needs to do to establish a solid connection with Sasaki is to tell him that she's Yamada, the one at his cash register every day. Even though this will destroy how he sees her as his goddess, it'll at least give them a reason to stay connected. This counseling session gets interrupted by a customer, so as Goto deals with her, Yamada sorts out her feelings, scared that Sasaki won't like her anymore if he learns she has two different sides to her. That night, as Sasaki decides to walk past their spot without smoking, Tayama smacks him from behind and drags her back there. As she begins smoking and he puts a new cigarette into his mouth, she asks if he believes he can quit smoking if he tries. He says he will have to if he doesn't want to die an early death, and gets all gloomy as he thanks her for giving him company all these days. However, just as he mentions how he won't be able to talk with her like they used to anymore, Tayama tells him to stop speaking, revealing that she has something to tell him too. But just then, Sasaki's phone starts ringing, and he learns from the hospital that his test results got swapped with somebody else's, and that his lungs are as good as new. He shyly sits back down and explains it to Tayama, who repeatedly smacks him for scaring her so much. As he blushes and apologizes again and again, he mentions that he's glad they can continue smoking together like this, which rizzes her up. He then asks what she was about to tell him, but Tayama doesn't answer and instead uses her cigarette to light up his, while telling him to quit overthinking and just continue smoking with her like this. A few days later, while Yamada is practicing her customer service face in the mirror, Goto comes up to her and asks her to get ready to shoot a video for some promotional stuff. Yamada isn't thrilled, as she did one not too long ago, but she eventually agrees, while flashing her fake smile at Goto. This reminds Goto of when Yamada first joined their company and struggled with even the basics of people-pleasing, including her smile, which never came naturally. While Goto yelled at her for trying a little harder, Yamada apologized for always causing problems and getting complaints. Upon hearing this, Goto reassured her that the complaints she was receiving weren't from a bunch of clients, but from the only one, who was her #1 bully during those days. That day, after Yamada politely rings up an elderly nice woman, this bully returns and slams his basket in front of her, telling her to ring him up quickly. However, Yamada's vision becomes blurry with tears, and her limbs start shaking, all while she asks him the usual questions, and he ridicules them for it, calling her a dumb idiot. She tolerates this without a word, but when she picks out his eggs to bag them up, the guy begins yelling and calling her stupid, and becomes so aggressive that he starts kicking the counter, all while Yamada holds back tears. Meanwhile, Goto and the supermarket owner get informed about this ordeal, so they quickly rush out of the office. However, before Goto can practice her wrestling moves on him, a young and tired Sasaki, tells the man to shut his mouth as he's disturbing his mental peace. As the guy starts yelling at him too, Sasaki aura farms using his immense depression and mentions that instead of picking on one girl all the time, he should just use the other registers. As the loser loses the argument, the supermarket owner drags him away while Goto tells Yamada to take a break. Sometime later, Yamada spots Sasaki smoking right outside of the market, so she rushes out, thanks him for his help, and apologizes for making him wait at the counter for too long. Sasaki says none of it is her fault, so she shouldn't take it to heart. Besides, he only told that guy off because he was cranky after a long and hard day at work, so when he saw a hard-working girl like her getting yelled at, he just couldn't take it anymore. Yamada says she's not hard-working and is just passing time here, but Sasaki says he has seen her in action, so he knows that she's very dedicated to her job. As she gets flashbacks from all the extra time she put into flashing the perfect smile, she can't help but cry like a baby, which startles Sasaki, so he starts panicking. While crying, Yamada says she hates how she's always giving her manager a hard time and wants to improve her customer service skills. Sasaki understands this, so he tells her to continue working hard at this, as long as she loves doing it, because eventually, everything will fall into place. This makes Yamada cry even harder, so she lies, telling Sasaki that his smoke is getting in her eyes, which makes the poor guy panic once again. Back in the present, Yamada asks Goto if she remembers the guy who stood up for her long ago, but Goto has no idea since her memory is filled with her room comms already. Meanwhile, Yamada wonders where that man went after they removed the smoking area from the front of the supermarket, and wishes that he is still out there somewhere, unaware that Sasaki has been the same guy all along. Will Sasaki ever figure out that his two girlfriends are the same person? Let us know in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more awesome recaps.